Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einem weiteren Video von Gaming Scharf hier auf unserem kleinen schnuckligen YouTube-Channel Scharf und Scharf. Wir sind wieder im Bereich Guild Wars Infos, meine Lieben, und zwar weiterhin in den neuen Elite-Spezialisierungen von Vision of Eternity, den neuen DLC zu Guild Wars 2. In diesem Reaction auf den Stream von ArenaNet beschäftigen wir uns mit dem neuen Ingenieur, dem Amalgam Ingi, die mit der schleimigen Macht. Ich hätte mich persönlich wirklich auf einen Gravitationsingenieur gehofft. Der wäre so eher meins gewesen, hätte ich daraus auch eher verstanden, was einige dachten, oder so Magnetismus. So wegen Technikingenieur hätte ich relativ cooler gefunden. Ist so die Sache. Wir bekommen aber halt ein Amalgam. Wir tun also quasi gesehen Terminator und Vision in unseren Ingi schicken. Story ist dahinter, dass sich die Asura ja größteilig mit den Schleim ja auseinandergesetzt haben. Haben wir ja auch Herzen zu, kennen wir ja alles aus den Startgebieten. Und man quasi gesehen jetzt einen Schleim gefunden hat, mit dem man eine Symbiose eingeht und mit dem man quasi gesehen kämpferisch was krachen kann. In dem Fall ist es der Quecksilberschimmel, wie er sich betitelt. Und der tut quasi unsere Werkzeuggürtel ersetzen. Und man kann dort aber aus verschiedenen Fähigkeiten wählen. Und sollte der Schimmel irgendwann Bock haben, sich mit uns komplett zu verbinden, haben wir da auch unterschiedliche Elite-Versionen dann auf der F5, mit dem er uns arbeitet. Jedenfalls, das sagte der Blogpost aus. Wir sehen es uns gleich in dem Livestream-Reaction nochmal genauer an. Ist so, wie gesagt, okay. Ich hätte mich auf den Gravity wirklich mehr gewollt, weil der Ingenieur ja immer halt Technik eigentlich symbolisiert. Hier sind wir mehr auf extrem Alchemist. Hat er zwar mit drinne, der Ingenieur, will ich nichts von sagen. Er hat ja die Alchemistengewehr und sowas und die Tränke, ja, okay, aber irgendwie, weiß ich nicht, war das so von wegen, okay, ist jetzt nicht so was Technisches, aber gut. Schauen wir uns das Ganze dann mal an. Dementsprechend wünsche ich viel Spaß mit diesem Video.
So that's what we got for the conduit. Obviously, as we talked about, a lot of flexibility depending on what you choose to kind of specialize in based off your build, which alternate legend you have equipped. You know, you don't have to play Raza with this elite spec, of course, but it is a pretty powerful legend for pretty much every build, so we would expect to see a lot of Raza and alternate legend of choice based off what your build is trying to do. I'm just going to go ahead and get set up for our next demo, which will be the Amalgam.
Yep, and as we mentioned, all those tooltip screenshots are going to be on the forum. There's a pinned link to it, so we don't have to take all the time to hover through it. But now it is slime time. Talking about the mercurial mold, the Amalgam. Conduit was also pretty versatile. This one, I think it's got a beat in versatility. This is probably the most versatile elite spec I can think of. Cal's loaded in here, so you see the UI. You can see 3 blank slots. They might look familiar. They're basically like utility slots. Cal can show you the menu. Pop it up. You can pick any of those. So we have 7 more skills, 3 slots, a lot of permutations
Okay,
here.
das sind auf alle Fälle mehr Fähigkeiten beim
Before we go into
Ingenieur.
what they do, we can talk about the new F5. It's going to be evolve. So if Cal hovers over it, it's just pretty simple. It says evolve.
It evolves.
So this one,
heißt auch Eklamorph, ne? Also es ist nicht eindeutig
so
Vision geklaut.
based on the more skills that you have selected in your F2 through F4 slots. So baseline, all it does is just give you a bit of an attribute increase, nothing special, but the real bonuses are going to come as we get into those more skills. Quick side note is that you can see that the F1 is still not selectable. That one is just going to be a normal healing tool belt skill. We decided to keep it there because for one, medkit exists. A really big part of medkit is having that F1 mending heal. But another part is that we do have trait triggers based on healing
Okay, also
tool
du
slots
tust nur
now,
auf
and
die
we wanna
jeweiligen
keep that,
Fähigkeiten
as something we
zugreifen,
can work
wenn
with.
du auch
So we
davon
didn't want you
eine
to have
der
to
anderen
decide, oh, I
drin
need
hast,
this
sonst
skill
ist
in
der
this
Werkzeuggürtel
F1 slot, 'cause
automatisch
it's the
wieder
lowest
auf dem
cooldowns, I'm gonna
alten.
proc those more. We just wanted you to put where you felt comfortable putting those skills as you would utilities. But we can get into it. So the more skills are going to be divided. There are a couple defensive ones and a couple offensive ones. So the first one is going to be the defensive protocol.
Barriere und
Protect.
Widerstand.
When it's used, it's just going to give you a block for a duration. Pretty simple, pretty good. Having a block in your tool belt slot is, pretty powerful. But you also see at the bottom of that tooltip, you have the resilient strain. And these strain bonuses are what I talked about, how it's going to upgrade evolve. So you see here that resilient strain grants you a barrier and resistance when you evolve. So it's a pretty big barrier. This one's super defensive, as I keep saying. This one's probably the strongest defense you can get out of all of the board skills. But that's just going to be one of the 3 bonuses you get, so it's already pretty strong. We can move on to the next one, though, is going to be Defensive Protocol Cleanse. It does what it says. It's going to cleanse you. It's going to convert damaging conditions to barrier and non-damaging conditions to protection. So it's going to kind of single out both. So if you have like a lot of non-damaging on you, but some like pretty heavy damaging conditions, you'll be able to get that. This is what you want to take if you're going into like maybe a PvE fight, has a lot of conditions like Greer, or if you're fighting maybe like a condition conduit in competitive modes, you can take this. Its strain bonus is going to be the replicating strain. It's going to give you a heal over time and alacrity, kind of like more sustained healing bonuses when you use that as opposed to the more immediate defensive bonuses from Protect. Good note on this skill is it's also a stun break. You're losing some of your tool belts, and a lot of the good ones are stun breaks. We wanted to make sure you had the options to take stun breaks with part of these more skills, and I can kind of open up even more normal utility options, because sometimes on Engineer you were kind of constrained of what you could take because you need some stun breaks, but now you can maybe take utility skills that don't have a stun break tool belt because you can get it here by selecting these.
Die Frage sein, ob das für Raukel was wird, weil bisher spielt ja Raukel alle
Spezialisierungen. The next one is going to be the last defensive one, Defensive Protocol Thorns. It's also going to be a stun break. This one is more dubiously labeled a defense. Okay. It is pretty offensive in what it does. It gives you a buff that's similar to, people might remember a long time ago, there was a boon called Retaliation. It did damage to people when they hit you. This one is going to be a pretty similar effect. The thorns are going to kind of react and strike when you're struck, dealing damage to enemies nearby you. Pretty important to note that this does have like a melee range requirement. So if there's like ranger rapid firing you from far away, you're not going to deal any damage to them. But if you're in the thick of it, maybe in like a World v World situation, getting hit a lot, this one's going to pump out a lot of damage.
Notably, there is kind of a limit to how often it will retaliate, correct?
Yes.
Also der macht zwar Damage und macht auch hier den Stunbreaker, aber ansonsten bisher jetzt erstmal, die Skills sind sehr defensiv auf alle Fälle. Defensiver Schutz.
Strain bonus is going to be the Rapacious Strain. This is similar effects to some other buffs we have in the game. When you strike foes, you're going to strike them additional time. So it's kind of like One Wolf Pack, Shattering Ice on Catalyst we have, just generating some extra damage. So this one's really, like if you want a defense, a stun break, but you don't want a full defense, still want to be offensive aggressive, maybe in PvE situations, this one's a pretty good pickup for that. But then we can move into the more offensive ones. The first one is going to be Offensive Protocol Pierce. You're going to create a spike and then jab out with it, stunning enemies. Big note on this one is that it is unblockable. It has a really high wind-up time, so it's pretty easy to see coming, but if an enemy is like shield blocking right in front of you,
macht das so diesen typischen
it can be a pretty good counter.
Stachelarm wie aus Terminator.
Just very offensively minded. It is loaded with CC. Its strain bonus is going to be when you evolve, you're going to stun nearby enemies after a delay.
Stance, ja.
So if Cow evolves with it on, you'll see that there's a little circle, and after a delay, another bang. It's going to stun people. So if you want to do some breakbar damage in PvE, this is the one you slot on. Get a lot of combo potential as well in competitive modes. CC someone, use some other of the offense we're going to get into. A lot of potential here. Then the next one is going to be offensive protocol obliterate. This is probably like the most offensive one you have. It's going to swing a giant sword. I think my direction to the artist was like, make this sword cartoonishly large. You can see a really cool streak on it. But it's going to deal a lot of damage, deal a lot of bleeding, and it has a special mechanic that I don't think we've done before, and that is going to break your enemy's barrier.
Macht Blutung und gibt Macht und ordentlichen Damage. Also das wäre was für mein Versi wäre das definitiv schon mal drin.
So specifically really good if you know you're going to fight someone who has barrier access, but also just does a ton of damage. Its strain bonus is going to be Titanic Strain. Evolving gives you might and also increases the effectiveness of might. It's going to be like 10 might stacks and also make that might even better. So if you have 25 anyways in PvE, it's still going to juice you. Pretty good damage increase, like I said. If you're looking for damage, it's going to be the one with the most throughput there.
Ach, die buffen sich, also die Fähigkeiten F2 bis F4 buffen sich durch die F5 und nicht umgekehrt, so wie ich den Blogpost verstanden hatte.
Norn, like it scales like most things do to races, and it's like incredibly big there. So the next one is going to be offensive protocol shred. This one, you're going to throw out 3 discs, you saw this in the video, that are going to cripple enemies, and if you hit all 3 of them, it's going to apply and immobilize. This one's kind of a gap closer. The spec isn't going to be as fast as Scrapper with its super speed or Hollowsmith with like Photon Forge 2. So this is a good, like, if you want to make sure you're chasing enemies,
verkrüppeln und immobilisieren.
To go along with that, its upgrade bonus is going to be the Predator Strain, just giving you quickness and super speed when you evolve.
Macht auch ordentlich
pretty good
Damage.
bonuses to chase people down and deal some damage pretty fast. Then the last morph skill we have access to is going to be offensive protocol demolish. This one you're going to swing a hammer around, and then at the end you're going to smash it down. Again, we saw this in the video. This one is really focused around doing heavy AoE damage. So if you're trying to cleave a lot of mobs, if you're in World v World, you want to do a lot of damage to the group in front of you, this is a skill you take.
Der macht wirklich nur Damage.
To go along with that, when you're in the cut of things, it can be kind of dangerous. So the Berserker Strain is going to give you stability and also heal from outgoing damage. So while you're doing that, you're healing yourself, staying up, making sure you don't die while you're in the middle of things. The spec is, you know, pretty much a bruiser spec. There's going to be a lot of defenses baked in and a lot of ways to deal damage, especially from melee range. So
dadurch kommt die Stabi, okay. Das ist dann das, also ist es eher andersrum zu verstehen, als ich den Blogpost verstanden habe, okay. Gut, das heißt also, wenn wir in Damage-mäßig spielen wollen, von seinem Bersi, dann wären die 3, die jetzt letzt vorgestellt hat, sinniger, die anderen sind eher Defense-Sachen. Wirkt jetzt aber davon vom Werkzeuggürtel her erstmal nicht favorisiert stark auf Zustand. Das heißt, ein Zuständler könnte eher daraus dann Dings ziehen. So Heilung. Barriere 20%, okay. Boah, 7000, na gut, dafür war lange Cast, ne? 5 Sekunden Heal über Zeit.
It's going to heal you over time pretty rapidly when you use it. And then it's got a little hook that is going to increase its effectiveness while you have barrier. As Cal's been pressing the skills, you can see that you're getting some barrier when you get more skills, so it's pretty easy to trigger that. We'll get into that when we talk about the traits. But this one, it's not going to give you like a burst heal like you normally do. It's going to be a heal over time. And so it's kind of vulnerable to pressure. You know, if people are hitting you while it's healing, they're going to break your barrier pretty fast. So you're going to lose out on that. You might not get the direct healing that you might get from like an AED
wenn du
or like
dich mit der Gruppe prügelst,
heal.
Brauchst du eine Heilung, die dir sofort Heilung ballert.
Really good sustain benefit.
Und die lädt sich aber jetzt, die ist wie so ein Trank, sie füllt einfach nur so auf. Das heißt, du musst da schon, wenn du die benutzt, aus dem Kampfblock raus. Also die ist im Kampf selber, um sich schnell zu heilen, um dann noch den Gegner umzukloppen, eher schlecht.
Then we can go on
in der Kombi natürlich mit der F1 könntest du das machen, das musst du dann genau timen, dass du F1 machst wegen der Barriere und dann die Heilung, damit der Schaden auf die Barriere geht, damit die Heilung hochziehen kannst. Was ich trotzdem ziemlich schwer an. Stabi und Gegner wieder für Breakbar.
Then you're going to get a buff for a little bit that increases outgoing stun duration. So this pairs pretty well with
Macht
Pierce
aber
we
auch
talked
ordentlich
about. If you
Schaden.
have Throw Mine, if you have Hammer on, just if you need to do break bar damage, start with this and then throw all your things out. In competitive modes, you know, getting stability and stunning people pretty strong. thing to have. Really good initiation tool. Then next one, we can talk about liquid state. You're going to melt down into a puddle. Most importantly, you can move while being a puddle. And then while you're in that state, you're going to deal damage around you, kind of ticking damage.
Das macht auf alle Fälle Gift. Das ist ähnlich wie wenn wir diesen mit Necro diese Attacke auf den Boden gemacht haben, wo die Spur gezogen haben.
You're going to evade while you're under there.
Auch verkrüppeln dazu.
So it's going to be a shorter duration than something like Elixir S. But it's also going to have a little cooldown, be a bit more usable, and also you can keep up some pressure while you're, you know, taking poison onto people that stand on top of you. Then the next one is going to be gaseous state. You will sublimate, vocab word, breaking stuns, and then you're also going to remove movement impairing conditions and prevent their reapplication.
Wieder dieser klassische, ne?
In a gassy, airy state,
Breakstun und dir werden halt Kühle oder Immobilisieren weggenommen, also typisches Schutzskill.
A bit hard to hit, so this has a little bit of a new mechanic where incoming strikes against you are going to be glancing blows. So it's basically like as if anyone that hit you had a weakness on them. So can't be crit, really good damage reduction tool. Not completely invulnerable, you can still be CC'd during this, but again, pretty good defensive cooldown. Then the last one is going to be plasmatic state. This one is going to be the most offensive option you have. You're going to strike out twice, giving yourself a pretty good damage buff, and also doing heavy damage from the strikes themselves.
Also hier kannst du eher was für den Zuständler rausholen aus den Fähigkeiten als über die Werkzeuggürtel.
I think in PvE the spec is going to have a more bursty damage profile, where you're going to want to save your cooldowns for when you have Evolve up and stack all of them at once, get a really high damage burst off. So managing those cooldowns is going to be kind of important. And then competitive modes, this one is going to be, if you want just more damage
Wenn man
from
da
the
das
kit,
Blut nimmt und die und dann das eventuell mit dem Streitkolben kombiniert, der ja Richtungszustand war, könntest du aus ihm einen interessanten Zuständler machen.
You're going to kind of command your slime to swirl around you, creating a magnetic field. You're going to initially pull people in and then create like a storm of those like spiky metal things.
Das Problem ist, dass die Rechtsfähigkeiten haben muss, da oben die Fähigkeiten zu
pretty good
ziehen.
control thing to start with, and then as you pull enemies in, there's going to be a storm that damages around you. So pretty simple elite skill. Again, pretty good to have up when you're bursting things.
Simple Verbluten ist die Elite auch nicht schlecht.
That kind of covers all the utilities. We can move into the traits here quickly. Yep, the first one is going to be experimental union, explains what the spec does. That's, you know, can move on to the first interesting one, is going to be hybrid vigor. You're going to gain vitality, and then this is where the barrier was coming from as Cal was pressing the skills. When you gain barrier, when you use a morph skill. This one's kind of built in sustain, kind of the heat therapy equivalent of this spec. Doesn't give vigor, so maybe it's like an unplayable thing, but hybrid vigor is like a biology term, so get educated, I guess.
Aber ich sehe ihn trotzdem unter schwer, dass Raukel den spielen wird.
Willing host.
Das könnte vielleicht eher meine Zuständlerin werden.
Again, kind of like the baked-in damage increase for the spec. This buff, when you use it, it's not going to stack duration, it's going to reset duration, so it's a bit of an incentive to spread out your cooldowns to make sure you always have this buff up. You don't want to maybe slam all your morph skills at once and then run out of the damage bonus. You want to make sure you have spread them out so you can, you know, make sure that buff is always on you, getting the most value out of it. Then going to the adept tier, this tier is kind of a theme. They're all going to be defensive. None of them are going to give you a damage bonus, but it's going to be how do you want to pick that defense. The first one, stainless steel, is going to be oriented more towards conditions. When you use one of the stand skills or evolve, you're going to convert conditions into boons. So if you're going into a place where you would want that cleanse morph against, again, Greer, any Condi boss, or in competitive modes, this one is probably the one you want to pick. The one below it, it's going to be innervating alloy, heal every second while you have barrier.
Ich kann das jetzt irgendwie umwandeln, wenn ich jetzt den richtig verstehe.
Good innate synergy with that hybrid vigor trait we talked about. This one is not going to provide you an active defense, but it is going to give you sustain over time.
Könnt die Heilung mit verbessern.
So if you can't really decide if you want the top or the bottom, this one's a good middle ground to have, always useful.
Oder mir einen Bonus in Heilung geben.
Protection against kind of burst damage, that strike damage, hardened chrome, more skills and evolve, grant protection to yourself. So it can potentially be a lot of little triggers of protection. So it's good with that inventions trait, anti-corrosion plating. Get a lot of triggers off of that. But if you're up against heavy strike damage, this is a trait that's probably going to give you a lot of value compared to the other two. Then you know, the interesting level of these traits is going to increase if we go with the tiers. The master trait going to be a bit more interesting. Grandmaster is pretty spicy, so just tease you with that as you talk about the master tier. The first one is going to be carbolic composition. This one is going to focus on poison application. It's going to cause all your amalgam skills, which are just any skill that's special to the amalgam, all the morph skills, all the utilities on hit, they're going to apply poison. And then you're also going to get a pretty big duration increase for poison.
Ja, okay, doch.
Engineer
Fokus kannst du eher auf den Zuständler ballern.
Bleeding and burning in the firearm straight line, but poison was kind of not there. So this hopefully make it easier to condition duration cap, specifically with some condition builds, and also be a more biological focus on applying poison and just getting some extra damage, enabling some condition amalgam builds here. The middle one is going to be Mercurial Tendencies. Disabling an enemy reduces the cooldown of Evolve. This is a pretty powerful effect if you can get a lot of CCs in your build. This one is specifically going to give a lot of synergy towards hammers, I think. You know, if you're a Juggernaut owner, you want to use it with this spec. And hammer can get a lot of CC procs off. So again, using that, you get Evolve off cooldown more, can mold your rotation some, based on getting those CCs matched up a bit better with Plasmatic State damage bonus. Should be pretty interesting. Something you definitely want to be capitalizing around on a damage amalgam build. And then the last one is going to be Silver Lining. It's gonna do what it says. There's gonna be a bit of a downside, but a pretty good upside. Evolving no longer inherits the bonus of strains, so it makes so all you do when you evolve is get that stat bonus, but instead more skills are gonna grant their strain bonuses at a reduced duration. So this one shouldn't give you a lot more uptime on those bonuses, but a lot more flexibility of when you use them. So if you do that hammer spin, as Cal's doing with it, you're going to get stability at the start. It's a pretty good time to get stability is when you're doing that long cast.
Damit macht den Bonus gleich, ohne dass du erst die Form brauchst.
So you're going to have it when you use Obliterate, get that damage bonus when you want it. So yeah, like I said, just a bit more flexibility. Might be better in competitive modes where it's risky to get all those bonuses all at once, but this is more spread out, but again, lower duration. You might be thinking with this trait that like, okay, Evolve kind of sucks if I take this trait, but we haven't gone to the Grandmasters there. So all the Grandmasters are going to kind of change what Evolve does a bit and make it so the button that's already interesting is like super interesting. So talk about them, we go to Symbiotic Synergy, the top trait, which has the best trait icon in the game. It's just a little ooze guy that's smiling. But what it's going to do is it's going to cause Evolve to recharge your morph skills, and then morph skills deal increased strike damage. So recharging all three of those abilities is pretty strong. Getting all of that damage back can get your block back, stun breaks back when you evolve. Makes it a pretty good cooldown to have. Pretty big strike modifier for PvE. All these traits, everything you're seeing on the stream is like kind of split.
Weil wenn man die ganze Elite-Spezialisierung gerade sieht, mein lieben Schäfchen, ne? Sind die alle so machtvoll. Gut, die Cooldowns sind ja absichtlich weg zur Demonstration. Aber die sind alle so mächtig. Da fragst du dich hinterher wirklich, Alter, was kriegen wir da für Gegner?
Evolve is going to grant an additional charge and grant
ist das so wieder das Typische? Schon die Titanen waren ja schon nicht ohne. Aber du gehst da hin und dann kriegst du erstmal gleich so eine aufs Fressbrett.
Getting that stat bonus to 15%. And having two charges means that you can kind of choose when you want to evolve. Again, when we talk about Silver Lining, some of these bonuses are things you want to time specifically. So just having that extra charge and knowing you can use one of them off cooldown, but always having another one when you want that stability, that resistance, anything that you want, that quickness, super speed on demand can be pretty powerful. This trait has a lot more burst potential. You can use two evolves back to back to get some really high bonuses, where I expect maybe Symbiotic Synergy is a more sustained damage option. But then there's one last Grandmaster trait, and this one is potentially the most interesting. It's going to be Contagious Mutation. Strain enhancement effects are shared to nearby allies when activated with a reduced duration. So that's all the effects we just talked about. You give your allies the resistance, the quickness, the super speed. Even the special ones, you can give them that strike bonus from Rapaceous Strain. You can give them increased might effectiveness. They're going to take a duration decrease. You're sacrificing a lot to take this trait. You're not going to get like the cooldown reduction from Evolve. You're not going to get the double charges. But if you're in a group situation, this is probably a really good trait to have. A lot of potential, a lot of things that this could just be broken. That's what betas are for. So very excited and interesting to see what people do with this trait. Gotta keep our eye on it for sure. It does work with silver lining. So if you have both contagious mutation and silver lining, you're going to share to allies when you use those morph skills. So just even more choosing when to give things. They are going to stack the duration bonuses. So I think it's like only 3 seconds you share to allies, but still pretty powerful application. You do have the ability to grant both quickness and alacrity if you take both of those, but you have to make a lot of sacrifices to do that. So potentially fine, we will see. But yeah, that is the
Auf alle Fälle
Amalgam.
böse.
Pretty
Is the
good.
Amalgam.
Böse, böse. Und nun befinden wir uns am Ende unseres kleinen schnuckligen Videos. Denkt dran, wenn euch das Video gefallen hat, dann Daumen nach oben. Wenn euch weitere Videos auf unserem Kanal interessieren, dann abonnieren und das Bimmelglöckchen nicht vergessen, damit ihr immer das Neueste vom Neuesten nicht verpasst, was wir auf unserem kleinen Channel hier hochladen. Besucht uns auch auf unseren anderen Social-Media-Plattformen. Im Bereich Guild Wars 2 ist das Twitter, X und Facebook. Auf Twitter tue ich auch meine Streaming-Zeiten zusätzlich noch posten. Ansonsten könnt ihr auch gerne mal bei Gamer-Profils vorbeischauen. Social Media von Gamern für Gamer. Auf Instagram findet ihr mich auch oder ihr schaut einfach bei twitch.tv/gamingscharf rum. Da könnt ihr mich live sehen. Ihr könnt mit mir schreiben oder auch zocken, wenn ihr darauf Bock habt. Alles wie üblich in unserer kleinen stuckligen Videobeschreibung verlinkt. Meine Lieben, macht es gut. Bis bald. Wir sehen uns.